Thank you for joining us and welcome to another WSWA Access webinar. Today's topic is from one case to 1 million, what happens after you get to market? And as with all Access webinars, information shared is intended to provide craft, startup, and small production wine and spirit brands with best practices, firsthand experience, and a little bit of inspiration to succeed in the US marketplace. In fact, over the past decade, craft, startup, and small production wine and spirits have become one of the largest growth segments in the industry, and 2022 will likely be another big year for several startup brands. Before we introduce the panel and get started, several of you have contacted us asking about the next WSWA Brand Battle Tournament. And the next Brand Battle Tournament will be held at WSWA's Reimagine Convention in 2023. And for the latest information on all WSWA in-person events, be sure to follow us on Twitter at WSWA-Media. Additionally, the application window to be a WSWA Access Craft Wine Spirits brand representative on the 2022 Advisory Council is now open and will remain open until Friday, March 11th. You can apply at wswa.org/access. Today, we have a great panel of experts. These folks know growth, they know the industry, and have sold over 1 million cases, or if we're really to break it down, 3.6 Olympic-sized swimming pools filled with their product. And that sounds both delicious and a party that I want to be invited to. We have with us today Stephen and Brittany Yang, founders of Screwball Whiskey, the most popular and first brand to market in the peanut butter whiskey subcategory. Stephen, Brittany, great to see you again. Thanks for being here today. We have Marilee Kick, founder and CEO of Southern Champion and Buzzballs, a women-owned alcohol brand founded in 2009 with a vision of reinventing happy hour with RTDs. And we also have Danny Brager, WSWA SipSource analyst and industry veteran consumer trends expert. Let's get right into it. Okay, so exploring consumer trends, because product success is only achieved by brands who are obsessed about their consumers. And I can tell you we have two brands here who are consumer-centric. From brand narrative to taste to consumer experience, Buzzballs and Screwball would not have achieved this level of success had they not made decisions with their consumers in mind. And I would venture to say most of the time. So Danny, walk us through some of today's consumer trends in these categories.
Sure, and thanks Michael and WSWA, and I want to jump in that pool as well. So we always need to consider what consumers are thinking, what they're telling us and behaving. Obviously, if they're not buying, we're not selling. So what are some of those key macro consumer drivers, in my opinion? And frankly, I mean, some of these are not new. They were with us to varying degrees pre-COVID, but COVID may have even accelerated the trend. More consumers are becoming total beverage alcohol consumers. They're choosing different drinks right across the entire beverage alcohol spectrum, depending upon the occasion. They're seeking authentic brands with authentic stories, but they're open to exploration and discovery of something new to them, often embedding their drinking experiences within a broader entertainment experience. They're flavor seekers, sometimes seeking something traditional, but often seeking something new and different. They're looking for convenience, whether that be in how they shop or buy, or the convenient package type and size for the specific drinking occasion. Sometimes they're seeking or increasingly seeking products that are better for them, however they define wellness to them. And I think we're all aware of the premiumization or trading up behavior among many consumers, not all. Sort of the adage has been quality over quantity to some extent, likely exacerbated during COVID when people often had extra money in their pockets and were restricted from spending some of that money. So they often spent on stuff instead of services. So if you go to the next slide, I mean, I can reinforce what Michael said about these two brands that are very consumer-centric. From the brand narrative and taste to consumer experience and convenience, Buzzball and Screwball would not have achieved the level of success they had they not made decisions about consumers foremost in their mind. And here's that success utilizing Nielsen's off-premise channel data for the total US. Out of the 6,400 spirit brands and 17,000 wine brands in Nielsen's data, this shows the phenomenal success of Screwball and Buzzball brands achieving brand rankings in the top echelons of all wine and spirit brands, not just whiskey or not just spirit or wine cocktail type brands, but all brands. So hats off to our panelists today. Let's take a wider view of the performance of the various segments that these brands participate in on the next slide. I've used a bit of SipSource data here for the spirits category. SipSource is inclusive of depletion volume covering both off and on-premise channels, aggregated from a dozen or more participating wholesalers, including the largest distributors in the country. Here I'm showing 2021 annual volume share of these various spirit categories in the columns, organized in size from left to right, and then the circular dot shows the latest 12-month trend versus the year prior. So I point out US whiskey as the second largest segment, growing at 1.5%, but flavored whiskeys are growing at almost 6% in 2021. And then I'd point out the huge 40% plus increase for RTD spirit cocktails, leading growth across all spirit segments by a huge margin. Let's look finally a bit closer at the broader RTD space, or as some have called it, the fourth category among many other names. So within Nielsen's off-premise channels, I've looked at wine-based cocktails and spirit-based cocktails, smaller in size than full-size bottles. So you can see their acceleration in size from 2018 to 19 to 20 and 21, although still well behind hard seltzers that are close to hard seltzers, $5 billion in size. But while hard seltzers growth has stalled and flavored malt beverages are growing only slightly, wine and spirit RTD cocktails continue to grow at double-digit growth rates, and that's right up through the most current 13 weeks. And given the size of hard seltzers, I'd suggest that represents additional opportunities for wine and spirit cocktails to eat away at some of the hard seltzer drinking occasions that have emerged over the past 3 to 4 years. So I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Danny. That was really interesting. And those are certainly some trends to pay attention to. We've seen the trends. Now let's meet the trendsetters. Brittany and Stephen, tell us about Screwball, where it started and where the brand stands today.
Thank you so much for joining us. And I would not call us experts because 4 years ago, we have no clue anything about the business. So, I have to tell you a story why we did peanut butter. People assume, maybe I was drunk one night, laying on a couch, sticking my hand in a jar of peanut and washing it down with a bourbon and swishing it in my mouth. You know what? This tastes delicious. I should bottle it. So I have to tell you a little bit of my story, my history, similar to what's going on right now and what are you watching the news. My grandparents and parents were in Cambodia. There was a whole genocide that happened from 74, 79. Unfortunately, one of our inspiration, why we call it Screwball, is that being the black sheep, it's the chocolate swirl and peanut butter swirl standing front and center of our label, and then surrounded by a sea of black sheeps right there. So, and for us to be a black sheep, usually you're supposed to stand, on the side, but we're standing front and center leading a pack of white sheep. So my grandparents during the genocide was murdered because they were a screwball. Someone could speak up for themselves, stand up for what they believe in. And so my parents survived that. And my parents survived that. When I was around 1 year old, I was born in the mid 80s. The country was so poor. If you ever tried to trade a bar of gold for a banana, they said, there's absolutely no way I would trade that because I cannot eat gold. So now imagine the country was also surrounded by, there's a virus that happened also, it's polio. That airborne virus similar to COVID, and unfortunately, I caught polio, so my right leg became paralyzed overnight. Parents decided to drop off everything and cross landmine borders to Thailand and end up in a refugee camp for about 6 years. We were standing in line for food and standing in line for water, and our prayer got answered when we was praying to get sponsored US. So a random act of kindness for a couple who lived in San Diego that's brought us to San Diego. And when the couple saw us all skin and bone all the time, would give us basket food all the time, there was bread and there was peanut butter. So for me, peanut butter was that taste of freedom for me. And,
And so then we fast forward a little bit for time's sake. He had built very successful restaurants and bars, and the top selling cocktail was a peanut butter and whiskey cocktail. And I saw that success with a broad range of people and said, we have to bottle this. And and we, you know,
Yeah, we have to bottle it.
basically-
And, you know, and then now when we try to bottle it, when we try to go to companies, RTD's company, and asking for help, you know, and we think we sound reasonable people, not crazy people. And we usually leave and what it is about. And two things happen when they ask, hey, you know, what's the product about? Two things always happen. Either they hung up the phone, or they put on mute, laugh their ass off after we told them it's peanut butter whiskey. So literally we had no help. We had to really figure everything by ourselves. If you think about, I mean, every mistake that could have been done, we've probably done that 2-3 times over. So fortunately with Brittany and Brittany, I came from a hospitality restaurant business. So I was able to really just every sample that I have that she created, I would test random people. Hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And Brittany, who had a master in chemistry and then went on to being a pharmacy school litigator in big law, was able to create something that the world hadn't seen before, peanut butter whiskey. So that's how Screwball is created. From you never knew where life takes you, of tragedy, and where we end up. And where it's now is, you know, I mean, we're proud to say that Screwball is one of the most successful independent liquor brand in history, one of the most successful launch liquor brand in history. So,
yeah, what a great origin story. Thank you for sharing that. Marilee, tell us about BuzzBalls.
Okay. Well, I started, I was a high school teacher in Plano, Texas, and I was working on my master's degree because teachers don't make any money, and I was about to get a divorce, and I didn't want to live in my car. And so anyway, I was getting my MBA, and I had to come up with a thesis project. And so I was drinking a cocktail by the pool, grading papers, and I thought, you know, I'm going to make a party ball, and that's going to be my master's degree thesis project. So because I thought, you know, it survives in good times and bad. It is recession proof. And back at that time, 2009-ish was recession. So I thought, you know, booze always sells in good times and bad. So anyway, high school teacher, no experience, created this idea of a ball that you could buy by the ball. You didn't have to, you could mix and match it. You didn't have to buy a 6-pack. So I focused on the creation of that. And in 2010, Glazier's was my first buyer. And Blair Casey, I presented it to him at Glazier's, and he said, you know, I'm going to take a chance on you. So he let me start selling in Dallas. And then over the next year, I expanded through Texas. And then he referred me to his friends in Arkansas and Missouri that were also Glazier's. I was still a teacher at the time. I was hiring my sons and their friends to work for beer, and, you know, yeah, it was just anything to help me. So anyway, just got it going. Case 1 was sold in 2010 to Glazier's, and now we're 5 million cases a year. This year we'll sell 4.65 million cases. And we could sell more if we could make it faster, you know, so that's what we're doing. And we're selling in all 50 states and 21 countries. So.
wow.
Did drinking and grading papers result in students getting better or worse?
It made me feel better anyway.
That's part of
You
it.
know
right?
what I've noticed too, Danny, one thing in common that these two companies have is the word ball. I think that should be on part of your synopsis there.
There you go. Yeah, that may be a case study.
Yeah.
Danny's thinking already. I can see it.
It's
So,
going to be the number
Danny-
7 consumer driver. I'm going to add it.
Ball.
Without a doubt. So Danny, these two products, first of all, unbelievable origin stories, two distinctly unique entrepreneurs here. These two products may be in different categories. They have some similarities in their brand names, but RTDs and flavored whiskey respectively, but there's really impressive growth trajectories here. So how do startup, small production, and craft in today's marketplace fare?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, those are amazing stories, and talk about authenticity. I mean, just hearing the stories is so authentic. But in a nutshell, I mean, to answer your question, Michael, they're doing very well. I'm going to use spirits as an example. And I have two different views of that success, again, in spirits, first off. So one is from Nielsen data. I looked at 39 independent owned brands, and inclusive within that, there's a few that have been acquired over the past 3 or 4 years by large spirit companies, but they didn't start that way. All of these brands were around since 2018, all of whom have grown their businesses considerably. And by the way, within those 39 or 40 brands, I excluded any brands that have been historically owned by large spirit companies. So these brands represent in aggregate about 3 million cases in Nielsen's off-premise data. They grew over 30% in 2021 versus the prior year. And keep in mind that if you're growing in on-premise in 2021 versus 2020, when off-premise rather, in 2020 was so high because of all the channel shifting that COVID caused. So growth in off-premise in 2021 is an exception, not the rule. And these brands did that. These brands in total are 4 times bigger versus their size in 2018. And they represent about 2.5% of the spirits category on volume. So that's one view. If you go to the next slide, here's another view. This is courtesy of the recently published Craft Spirits Data Project. For purposes of that research, craft spirits were defined as distilled spirits products produced in the US by licensed producers that have not more than 750,000 proof gallons removed from bond. They market themselves as craft and they're not openly controlled by a large supplier. And you can see the kind of growth in volume and dollars from this group of distillers. By the way, there's 2,290 craft distillers in this grouping, growing to 12 million 9-liter cases, up 7.3% from the prior year, and to almost $7 billion in sales dollars, growing at an annual rate of close to 10%. And by the way, if you do the math on dollars divided by volume, you come out to an average retail price of $46 a bottle, which, so for this grouping of craft spirit distillers, that's obviously they operate at the premium end of the market. So 2 different views. I could do the same for wine. We'd see the same thing. I already talked about the phenomenal success of wine and spirit RTDs, and it all demonstrate the tremendous growth potential of brands that take into account, these consumer needs and desires.
Yeah, that's exciting. So Steve and Brittany, take us from that first case, if you remember that, to the millionth case. How did you start with getting to market, scaling up, and what was that tipping point for you?
Yeah, so I remember first case in Ocean Beach. I went to a liquor store, or a local liquor store, and asked if they could let me just bring this case in. The manager laughed at it. There's absolutely no way. But somehow I ran into the owner, and the owner agreed to let it in, to bring it in. So call our man in van. We were a man in van distributor to drop it off. And he made me literally clean the floor, sweep that area. It was in the very back. And somehow I literally asked my friends, go in there and make the biggest deal possible, like act like a maniac. Wait, you got screwball? You got, oh my God, I've been looking for it. They literally, it literally sold within 10 minutes. And from there, I think, and then he ordered our 10 cases. And I'm like, I don't have that many friends to order our 10 cases. But then it sold itself within like a couple hours. And then he called for another 500 cases, which we don't have. I think that was our first case ever. And then for us, there's a lot of difficulty having a man in a van to help us distribute. Essentially, we have to help them out. There's no marketing, there's no accounting. And I think fortunately we were able to meet the Underwood, Infinium, where, I mean, they without them, we would not be here today. So also with Dan Walker, who's the president of Infinium, for them, they see something that really no one else saw in sugar, that they didn't look at peanut butter whiskey. They look at the brand, the story, how authentic the story was and where we got there. So
yeah, no, I think for us, like Steve was saying, a lot of it initially we're having to do a lot more of the legwork, and there's only 2 of us and we can only expand ourselves so much. And so really that tipping point for us was once we got the distribution, had many more feet on the street, kind of helping us out and being able to spread the word. And they had an authentic story to share. And so that was helpful for us.
Yeah, that's a great story. Create your own buzz if there is a lack of buzz. I like that game plan. That may go into the Access playbook this year for sure. Marilee, tell us about your distribution journey. Share with us those moments that really stand out as growth benchmarks, And also, when you look back in that distribution journey, if there's anything that really stands out as a lesson learned that you're still applying today.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think my journey started, like I said, back in 2010. Blair Casey from Glazers brought me in and allowed me to have a first test market. And I had to go out and sell those things myself. One of the things when you're small, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know anything about the industry. You don't have the networking. You don't have the contacts. You don't know how to do it. So you have to research everything yourself. So, I went to Blair Casey and I said, let me have a chance. He let me have a chance. And then I went to the SBA, Small Business Administration, to get a loan. They weren't going to give me a loan because I was just a teacher and I was a woman and this was a male dominated industry and I didn't know anybody and I had no collateral and yada, yada, yada. But I told them, hey, I've got a buyer. And so they said, okay, we'll give you the loan. So that was the first tipping point, I would say. Next tipping point, I think Stephen and Brittany probably had this too. You run out of money. You run out of cash to float inventory. You got to max out your credit cards. You're going by the seat of your pants, and hopefully somebody takes mercy on you and gives you some money. My parents did that. They gave me 50 grand, and that helped me float enough just to stay afloat. Huge tipping point. I needed more cash flow. I needed to sell more. I didn't know anything about WSWA, but I talked to a guy named Bert Erpello, who was a legend broker in the industry. And he said, well, I think you're doing fine. You just need to go to WSWA. And I didn't know about it. And I got the last booth at WSWA. My son and I drove out to Vegas, and overnight, literally overnight, we had 15 new states sign up to sell our brand. So if you're a new brand owner, go to WSWA. And I'm not trying to make a pitch for WSWA. I'm telling you, it's critical. And also bring like an extra bucket because you're going to not want to pay for the ice that Caesar's Palace charges you. So get it out of your floor's ice machine. Just a little tip.
You definitely answered right, but another one of the huge tipping point also is the WSWA. I remember Infineum Dan Walker asked us to join them. Us no clue what WSWA was about really at that time of where it is at right now. And then for us to be able to meet all those distributors for all our partners, and then the relationship that we're able to start then, I think that was, again, major tipping point where, it's a little weird setting where I think we were in a suite with Infineum brand. And I think there was beds and couches and we're presenting right in front of a couch or a bed. So, but overall, just meeting those distributor, but also becoming friends, and I mean, they want to be able to connect and remember you, and then being able to now build lifelong friends. I think that is one of our major tipping points also.
And one of the other tipping points that I had was I went back to Blair Casey. I keep bringing up his name because he works for us now as our VP of sales. I begged Glazers to let me have him. And he helped us grow from 400,000 cases to where we are now this year at 4.6 million cases. So it's really makes a difference hiring people that have the network and that have the experience, even if you're the entrepreneur. Some of the lessons learned to cut to that, I would say, look forward. If you're an entrepreneur, you don't spend your time looking backwards and figuring out what somebody else made. You just look forward, you put your horse blinders on and you go. If you don't see it on the shelves, chances are you could be first to put it on the shelf. So don't look and analyze what somebody else is doing and then go try to copy that and be the next seltzer or be the next whatever. You want to be an innovator. So try to make something that interests you and have your brand have a personality. Think of a brand as a person and give it a personality. You can tell by Stephen and Brittany, they have a vivacious personality and they're lots of fun to hang around with. That's the kind of brand that you want to buy. You want to buy a Buzzball because it's fun, it's innovative, it's cool, it's got a funny name. You have to relate to it if you're a consumer. So a consumer has to see themselves in your brand. And then last I'm going to say for lessons is growth's going to come in ladders. It's going to be, you're going to have, not enough sales, then you're going to get more sales, then you're going to need more manufacturing, then you're going to need more money, then you're going to need more people, and it's going to ratchet up. And it always is the constant game of keeping up, and how long can you stand keeping up with each side of the ladder. But that's what you're going to have to go through if you want to grow your brand. We personally, at our company, we do everything in-house. We manufacture the containers, we do the prep, we do the batching, we do the marketing, everything in-house. And that's just because it was so hard to rely on other contract manufacturers to make it for us. So that's how we've done it on our side.
Yeah, control and make your own destiny. And by the way, we are so excited for the WSWA convention to get back in 2023. It's going to be a great place. That's where the deals are made. That's where the brands are discovered. So we look forward to having you both there, but then also, looking for the next brands and the next big personalities to really take the stage and make a presence on that floor, because it is really an exciting place to be. So we're excited about that. Let's talk a little bit more about On-Premise and the role that is played in your respective brands' growth. Marilee, tell us about how you engage the On-Premise.
We don't. We're primarily an off-premise brand. We do a little bit of on-premise, but not a whole lot. Our brand has been built off-premise in the independents, and now with the chains. We're just starting to trickle into on-premise, but that hasn't really been our area of depth.
And what's created that opportunity? Is it the labor shortage and lack of mixologists and bartenders, something to just give to a consumer?
I would say to go has created some opportunities for us. You go to a Chipotle or to a Wingstop or something like that, you want to get a margarita to go. Or, just things like that would create something. Top Golf, places that you want to have a plastic container. Another good place we've seen sell is like places like the Improv, where a bartender needs to make something quick serve stuff. So that would be an opportunity for us.
Interesting. Yeah, seizing an opportunity. That's great. Brittany and Steven, tell us about your on-premise play.
For us is that we built brands on on-premise. And so, I came from on-premise, having bars and restaurant, understand it a little bit. When we first got full distribution, national distribution, all 50 states, in I think less than 6 months, and then COVID happened. So we never really truly utilized on-premise. So what we did was that huge fan of Dumb and Dumber. When everything was restricted, we created a shaggin' wagon with fur van, drove across all the country. I think I did about 40 states, spent about 3 months, and we're a mom and pop. There's times that I want to sleep in a van next to a river, but it's fine. So we drove across, and really just places that are open, we're able to support the staff by dropping hand sanitizer off, but also being able to support them by buying drinks or meals for a lot of staff. But I think that with Screwball is so versatile. You think of it like, when you think about peanut, and especially Asian cuisine, like a pad thai or something, the noodles, spicy, sweet, sour, savory, all that. So we play in a lot of on-premise, especially in cocktails, just not a shot, but also it's so versatile. So we're in a lot of major chains all across the US, from, you think of the Roost Chris Maestro to Buffalo Wild Wings, Hooters, Applebee's, Outback Steakhouse. We're pretty much in all those major national accounts, but also we play in the divest bars as a shop brand to the most crafty mixologist bars also. So on-premise definitely helped drive.
I think for us, especially with the price point for a bottle being close to $30, being able to go and get a shot was definitely a driver initially for us. And him coming from the restaurant industry, I actually worked with him when we first started, and that was definitely where we saw our main growth coming from. But I think, kind of going to Marilee's point of lessons learned, it was a big lesson to be flexible, and 2020 and the pandemic, and nobody saw that coming. And so we had to be flexible, and we wanted to remain true to the brand by giving back to the on-premise while still having that growth in the off-premise.
Yeah, so we do a lot of bartender advocacy, but I think that what helps us is just the versatility of Screwball with the peanut butter. So usually when you walk to a mixology bar, if you, hey, I got a flavor whiskey for you, they would, hey, get out. I don't even want to talk to you. But I think when we show that you can't create this in-house, that there's a lot more craft craftiness to it. Our proprietary secret is our formulation, how we create using real peanuts and able to remove out majority of the allergens and the proteins, and for it to be versatile in cocktails. I think that what helps us tremendously in on-premise.
Yeah. And obviously we all could appreciate, as an entrepreneur, the on-premise was disrupted, but you adapted, you improvised, and you took the show on the road. And you even slept in a van down by the river, which is really interesting, Stephen. So, Danny, with on-premise being disrupted, unlike we've ever seen before, and still in a state of recovery, what does on-premise mean for startup and craft brands? And what does that marketplace currently look like?
Yeah, I mean, disruption is obviously an understatement, as we all know. So I'm going to look at a little bit of on-premise data now through the unique lens of SipSource data, since it can break out both on and off-premise channels, as well as all the sub-channels within those. So this shows 12-month rolling growth trends, volume growth trends. The gray line represents on-premise. And if you go towards the right, it's 2021 versus 2020, the volume growth for spirits on the left and wine on the right. In both cases, it clearly shows the on-premise recovery from the depths of the declines that we saw, last year versus the year prior. That recovery, by the way, is faster for spirits than it is for wine. You can see those higher growth rates for spirits. Although if you look at actually the off-premise for spirits is also doing better than it is for wine. So the recovery is good. The on-premise is coming back, but it's not back to where it was yet pre-COVID. And if you go to the next slide, I'll read a couple statements kind of on this slide. The first is that the share, the channel share, the importance of on-premise is still lower now than it was pre-COVID. Its share is 25% lower for wine and it's 17% lower for spirits. Of course, that differs geographically. It differs by various product segments that SipSource can drill down into. One extreme example is actually, how things can differ is that the importance of on-premise to ready-to-drink cocktails is significantly higher now than it was pre-COVID. And that's a result of both its consumer popularity and likely favorability for many on-premise operators, given its convenience amongst all the staffing challenges that the on-premise faces. Marilee mentioned that the to-go option, which some states are now allowing. And during the heights of COVID, it also represented maybe for some consumers a safer choice with significantly less handling than, say, a mixed drink. On-premise accounts, in total, the number of locations are still considerably lower now than they were pre-COVID. Again, a lot better than they were during the heights or the depths, I guess, depending how you interpret it for COVID. But there's a lot, just simply less locations. And those that are open, often they have reduced hours. Often they have less assortment to ensure that what they do stock is moving off their menus and back bars. So while the on-premise is certainly recovering, and it still has a ways to go to get back to where it once was. And it really needs help from growth brands like the ones that our panelists offer. So I'm going to leave the on-premise with just one more slide, which is based on some survey work. If you go to the next slide, that the on-premise specialist, a company called CGA, has done. And I think it demonstrates both the differentiation of choice that consumers often make in the on-premise. 45% of consumers say that their drink preferences change when they visit bars and or restaurants compared to the drinks at home. So you can't assume that what they might choose in a store is going to be the same as what they might choose in a bar or restaurant. And then it also demonstrates the influence of on-premise on consumer purchases from stores. Over 50%, 53% to be exact, say menu options and their drink choice in a bar and restaurants often influences their alcohol purchases in stores. So I think to Stephen's point, that having introduced, say, a product to a consumer in a bar or restaurant can often lead to a follow-up purchase in a store. So, I mean, in a nutshell, on-premise is recovering, still not there, needs help. It'll continue to be a critical channel for brands to introduce themselves to consumers.
Yeah, and hopefully this year is the year for our partners and friends in the restaurant and bar community, but also obviously really important ground for exploration. So understanding the consumer behavior and what that means to your business as a craft and startup brand is critical to growth. So both Screwball and Buzzballs are in product categories that are some of the most competitive, and it's only going to get more competitive because there's a record number of craft and startup brands in the marketplace, along with new products from extensions to RTD versions. So tell us what a 1 million case business looks like, and how do you plan to continue with growing from here? Let's start with Brittany and Steven, and then we'll go to Marilyn.
Thank you. Yeah, no, for us, Screwball didn't exist 5 years ago. And so the market can change overnight very quickly. And so we get up every morning not expecting that just because we've done something in the past, that's going to be what we are in the future. And so every day, I mean, like Steve said, he travels like 300 days out of the year, making sure he's connecting with people, looking at the on-premise, the off-premise, seeing how the brand is actually displayed and seeing what we are doing, seeing what else is coming out. And so for us, it's really that continual drive of looking at what we can continue to do to improve it.
Yeah, and then there's it's about relationship also. You have to rely, you can't be there all at once. You have to rely on your partner with Infinium, and then partners with all the distributor across the country. And so, with that closer connections is that they want to help people that they like, also making money also at the same time. So I think the relationship, but also, we have to be kind and humble. I mean, that goes a long, long way also.
Marilyn?
Well, I definitely 100% agree on the relationship. Everything on that is very critical. In terms of how does it look for us, 1 million cases, we hit that in 2019, but we keep doubling in size almost every year. So the massive growth is just hard to manage. We've now got 500,000 square feet of production space, so, and 300 employees. So that's what that looks like. And so there's the whole, shifting of the org chart and figuring out who's going to report to who and how things work, just how to keep up with all this growth with the supply chains struggles, aluminum shortage, plastics shortage, just everything. So, it's difficult when you're dealing with that many people and that many moving parts. I know we waited on a machine for over 2 years that we were hoping to install. So that's kind of slowed growth considerably. But I think 1 million cases looks like you better get organized and hire some good people. And that's what we've tried to do. We've hired, top people like Tracy Frisbee from Constellation Brands. We've to help us with marketing. We've hired food formulation people. We've hired plant managers that have consumer products backgrounds. Just people that are good at what they do. And because it can't just be you anymore, you have to duplicate you 100 times. So.
Yeah, I mean, when we started Screwball, everybody laughed at us. You want to put peanut butter and whiskey, either one, we're ruining their whiskey or we're ruining their peanut butter. And so, with the success and our mill and case, I believe there's now over 65 or 70 other peanut butter whiskeys out there. And I think that you have to not look at the competitor, but really look at what you could do for yourself and how you improve your company, continuing brand visibility, and also, just get the story and get also just how do you, what are the different applications of Screwball. So,
well, and I think it kind of goes full circle to the beginning of this conversation of really talking to the customer and talking and making sure that we're continuing to provide the products they want, the messaging they want, our company growing in a way that aligns with their values. And so that's, full circle is continuing to have that conversation with your customer.
All right, it's time to open up to questions. So for those of you in attendance, you can use the Q&A feature and drop your questions to our panel in the chat function. If you're watching this as a recording, no one is going to respond. So our first question is, what do you look for in a distribution partner? Marilee, tell us, what do you look for in a distribution partner?
I look for best in class. So to me, we have multiple distributors. We don't just align with one. We look for the best in class in that territory because the US has different compliance rules in every single state. And it takes a lot of navigation to make that work. Some companies are really good in certain states, but not so good in others. So you got to look for in our niche category. It's convenience stores primarily, independent and grocery, and off premise. So that's what we look for.
For us, it's really people having a shared vision. They see the same vision for the brand. We could never become what people don't think we could become. And so we need partners that believe in the same thing that we believe in, as far as that growth and trajectory, and that they're willing to get in the mud with us and go fight for it.
All good.
Excellent. We're getting a lot of questions coming in from our attendees. Marilee, going back a little bit to what you were talking about, hiring the right people, we have a question in, especially early on for both of you guys. How do you think about allocating equity to those early hires, like the VP of sales? We know from our wholesaler advisors on the Craft Access Council that having boots on the ground is so important to helping you grow. When you were looking at those early hires to help you move into the next tier, what were you doing to incentivize new talent?
I think it depends on where you are in your stage of development. My early hires, not a whole lot of them are still with the company, so I'm glad I didn't give them equity. And plus, a lot of them were warehouse workers or someone that is helping me do the functions of the business, but not necessarily help me grow the brand with their networking or their background from the business. I think every person that we bring in wants equity, but I think it just depends on what your strategy is for your business. Do you want to keep your business or do you want to sell? And I think that equity becomes a very important playing card.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Brittany, earlier you were talking about the price point of Screwball being something that people could come into the on-premise and get a shot of. What was the process that led you to decide the right pricing for your products? I think that's something that up-and-coming brands struggle with a lot.
Well, I think that was actually a point of contention between Steve and I, and it would probably be a different price if history played out differently. For us, it was that was the price it cost. We used premium ingredients and premium things, and so it cost more, and so that was the price. I didn't want to undersell the product, and so we sold it at the price that it was really valued at, and that was able to then continue to invest in the company.
Yeah, we didn't come from the industry, so we didn't look at price point first. We were like, okay, what can we do to put the best product into this bottle, and then work backward to that. And I think many people like, wait a minute, it's going to be retailing at average price. Right now, it's currently at about $28 per 750, and you know what, it's selling. I think that tipping point, we're using that word, was that we were only in San Diego, and we got a lot of press from Forbes, GQ, Esquire, and the Today Show. And so back then there was no, I think Drizzly was starting out, and a lot of small just liquor delivery companies starting out. So I'm not sure how they did it, but there's about 5 independent liquor store was ordering a pallet a week, and they were really shipping it all across the US at an average price point, $100 per bottle. And they were going through about a pallet a week of that. So we knew if we have something that they want and something that they can't get, and they continue and willing to pay for it, I think that price doesn't matter.
I think a lot of the hesitation when we started was that there hadn't really, we were on the forefront of this premium flavored whiskey category. I think they said if you are over $19.99, it's dead on arrival. And like I said, it wasn't feasible for us. We were like, we created a product that demands a higher price. And so,
yeah, unfortunately also peanuts are very expensive. Real peanuts is, if you go to the ball games, and how much is just a bag of peanuts? It's just, so we couldn't make it any cheaper.
Yeah, really interesting stuff. So question about packaging and labels. So Marilee, when we look at your packaging, your label, tell us about why you chose to do it on your own, and what was that like? What was that process like?
Well, I wanted to make something unique. And at first I thought, everybody's doing things in an aluminum can, and I wanted to be able to see the liquid inside of it. So I thought plastic would be great. It'd be great for the beach. It'd be great for, places where you can't take glass items. So I was looking at a way to create a molded product. And I was also looking at the science of it. And I thought, what holds carbonation best? It's like a sphere. I needed to hold 95 pounds per square inch of pressure with the carbonation and not blow the lid off. And so, there was a lot of science that went into it, a lot of physics, and figuring out that the sphere is the strongest shape, and then how to keep from blowing the top and blowing the bottom out, so a lot of science went into it. And then I wanted to make something freaking cool. So I wanted to make something different, and that's what I did. And, you don't have an example of the biggie ball back there, but that thing's bowling ball sized, and it's big. So we've got some fun things. So yeah, it's fun. It's innovative.
Very cool. And Stephen and Brittany, you talk about quality ingredients. This is a quality label, great bottle. Tell us about the process of choosing the shape and the imprinting of the glass. And then last but not least, have you had any issues with supply chain?
Yeah, so I started for Onpremise, where I bartended for almost a decade. So I wanted to going in, I said, this is going to sit in the well bullishly. I wanted to be in the well speed rack. So I wanted to grab a handle, be able to pour, and also that thick base, that really premium look to it. I mean, when it comes to supply chain, we had nobody wants to talk to us, when we're doing peanut butter whiskey. And I remember that that was all our money. We were, like Marilee mentioned, I remember 2018, we had no more money. Everything we'd done was 100% self-funded, just for Brittany and I coming from our personal finance. And we came home with no electricity. I mean, our mortgage is upside down. The banker just really texting, really, we're overdrawn. I remember going to the grocery store, emptying out whatever quarters, coins, going to those money machine, converting it, and really making our mortgage, hoping to stay another month in our mortgage. And then we put all our life saving into buying glass, right? I mean, we buying glass. And then when the glass came, over 90% of the glass can't be used. 50% of the glass, because it is a unique neck, didn't have holes in it. When you talk about it have holes, wait, you can't even bottle and fill it. And unfortunately, unfortunately, you live and learn, and you have to move on, or you have no product. So again, when we mentioned every mistakes or speed bump we hit, we probably went over it multiple times and keep going.
And I think a big part, especially like Marilee said, it's one thing to have a design on paper and really bringing that to life. I always say with our label, if you look at the flat part of it, it looks really simple. It's plain. It's kind of boring, but it's really all the textures and all the bringing it to life that really makes a difference.
And then showing the connection, why we call it screwball, not because ball. I know it's a coincidence of balls and stuff like that, but what our history and what is a screwball is. That term of endearment. That, hey, back then we researched the misfit screwball. I mean, it's a perfect name where, we're making peanut butter whiskey. You're a screwball. You're that black sheep. So.
Awesome. Just before we started today, Stephen, you were talking about Screwball 18-year new vintage, and Marilee, you just look behind Michael and see the breadth of variety that BuzzBalls has. How did you know it was time to expand your portfolio offerings versus maybe going deeper on distribution on what you already had?
So that was a joke.
That was a joke because people look at Screwball being not crafty. I mean, our formulation, our flavor is crafty. So I was like, did you pick up the Screwball 18 year or so?
So this has actually been a brand choice that we've made early on, which is, for us, I think everyone wants us to, they're like, okay, what flavor is next? Like Danny said, there's a lot of flavor seekers and people that want additional things. From the beginning, we saw this as a bigger vision than selling flavored whiskey. We're selling Screwball. This is the brand, and we don't see a whole line of other flavors.
I think with it being versatile in so much cocktails, you could literally add anything, and Screwball does really well. I think that's where we don't feel a need to do a brand extension. And if we're going to do a brand extension, we made a promise to ourselves is only going to be something innovative that the market haven't seen before.
And Stephen, you touch on something. I mean, your background in bars, restaurants, and as a mixologist, tell us about mixologist engagement and training. Your social media constantly has great ways to incorporate screwball and classic cocktails and new cocktails as well. Tell us how important it is for the mixologist to play a role in this brand's growth.
Well, I mean, look, we've been flavor whiskey's frowned upon in the mixology world, but then when they couldn't do it, when I went to a mixology place that have actually peanut butter cocktails on their menu, I asked them, how do you do it? It would be a painful process of taking actual tub of peanuts, put whatever booze they want on there, like age it for a couple of weeks, and then strain it out, take out the oils out of that. And then, you still have the allergens. Well, we have something that you don't have to do in a lot, is already in a bottle for it. So it solves something that they couldn't. It solves something that it can do, and it tends to be their number one selling cocktails when it's on those the cocktail list. So to get these bartender engagement to show that, hey, it's not just flavor whiskey, it's also how we formulate, how we got to the peanut. Peanut flavor is the most difficult flavor to ever recreate, to ever create. So, and then demonstrating how we could take a screwball old fashioned, screwball Alexander, some of the most craftiest cocktail, and elevate that. I think their eye just opened. When we first started, the bartenders' websites on social media about what do I do with screwball? Maybe about 10% dump it in the drain, throw it in a trash can. Now, when I go back and look at those posts, hey, I got this, any ideas? We have thousands of comments of people putting, oh, you do this, you do this, you do this, do this. And I don't see, hey, throw it down the drain. This stuff's scrap. So
it's for us, it's more about sparking people's own individual creativity.
Yeah, no, that's great. And Marilee, I mean, you've got a plethora of flavors, and really good twists on some very familiar flavors and some really exciting ones. How do you do this, and how does your team work on the flavors and the launches?
Well, we have always had a lot of new flavors that we launch every year. We have a robust R&D team. We sit down in my office and get drunk and come up with new funny names. We think of new twists on products. We have bartender ideas that we go, oh, let's try to do that, or let's try to like do this with a twist or something different. So we're always coming up with new and innovative flavors. That's never been our downfall. Never.
Yeah, and what's great about that is you genuinely have reinvented happy hour, right? Some people are intimidated to have folks over, keep giving the same thing, and that's not the case with your product.
No, we've got new brands always coming out, new line extensions coming out. We're looking into the weed side of things as well. So we're looking into a lot of different avenues as well.
Yeah, no, that's great. I just want to read some of the comments that are coming in, and basically, folks saying that you three are such an inspiration for newbies in the industry. Thank you so much for the tips and advice. Wishing you all the best of luck. This is very inspirational. Thank you so much for your time today. And even folks talking about the data, Danny, believe it or not, the data is inspiring. Folks are saying that they feel encouraged to know that things are trending in the right direction. So overall, great stuff. Anything, Marilee, that you want to leave this group with before we close out today?
One person had asked, what would you spend your money on if you're new and you don't have a lot of money? I saw that on the chat. I would definitely go to WSWA, get a booth, and get on the trade show floor. Don't invest in a suite when you're new. Just get out on the floor, get your distribution going, get your manufacturing on lock if you can, and use social media to help promote your brand. Get a good website and social media. Try to do some Drizzly or Instacart sales, get your e-com going. So that's where I would start if you're new. But definitely WSWA. That was a huge help.
Awesome. Stephen and Brittany?
I think one of the things that when we were early on, Vern Edward would mention to us is once you put this out, into the consumer world, you lose control over what happens and what they do with it. And so my advice to someone who was starting would be to start, but also to really think about and try and front end as much as you can before you, bring it out into the world, because you never know. Half the time we're still trying to catch up and fix problems from the past. So.
Yeah, I mean, I know that I think Marilee could agree with this, is that people see as, wow, these are extremely successful brands. But I learned the saying, it's success is like pregnancy. Everybody congratulate you, but they don't know how many times you've been screwed. So don't let road bumps stop you. Keep on going and going, and then I think with both of our company, at least we have very similar paths, that you have no other option. If you fail, you lose everything, your family, your livelihood. So you just have to keep on going. So
it seems to me that one of the things you both did is you've met consumer needs. Well, you've met a need. It could be a consumer need, it could be a bartender need, and sometimes they know what that need is, but sometimes you have to tell them what their need is that they might not even know, and you've done that brilliantly. So personally, hats off to both of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Stephen and Brittany, Marilee, congratulations on all your success. We've really enjoyed meeting you, watching you grow, and we truly look forward to seeing you all in person at the 2023 Reimagine WSWA convention. And we'll definitely celebrate with a couple of buzz balls and certainly some screwball shots. And the screwball and the berry energy drink is a really good that espresso, I think, got me through COVID.
yes.
So I want to thank everyone for the great questions. Thanks for your time today. To our awesome panel, thanks for joining us. We'll be making a recording of this webinar available to everyone who is registered, so please look for that follow-up email and feel free to share it with friends. For more tips and best practices from our Access industry experts, you can download your free version. It is absolutely free, of the Access Distribution Playbook today. You can find that playbook and other resources at wswa.org/access. And finally, I want to thank everyone at WSWA, the Board of Advisors, all the staff throughout the country, and all the great distributors who bring all this awesome product to the most competitive, most diverse, most exciting, and most inspirational marketplace in the world. So have a great day, everyone, and be well.